The last 2 winters in Southern California were wet, meaning we had more rain than we normally do on an average winter. Especially 2 winters ago, that's over here, 2022-23, that was a La Niña year that was weakening, okay? And Central Southern California had about 2 winters in one. That's how wet it was. Twice as much rain as a normal season, 2022-23. The next year, which was last year, was an El Nino. It was wet, not as wet, but it also was focused on Southern California. The blue means 1.5 times, so it wasn't nearly as wet as the year prior, which was 2 times. Bottom line was both years back to back were wetter than usual. Currently, when we talk about La Niña or El Nino, so La Niña is the cold phase of the ocean temperatures, El Nino is the warm phase along the equator. So we always look from the sky over the ocean. Right now we can see La Niña is forming. That's the cold phase, colder than normal sea surface temperatures. It's blue shaded, which simply means it's colder than the long-term average. Your eyes might be drawn up here and here. We also have areas in the Pacific that are not related to La Niña that are much warmer than normal. So what this tells us is there's 2 things going on in the Pacific. There's some warm anomalies, which means unusual warm ocean temperatures, warmer than they should be, and then unusually cool in the zone that is outlined there, which is the La Niña zone area. So we know there's a developing La Niña, but that may not be the only thing going on in the Pacific. So last year we had a storm track or a jet stream or the path that brings us rain and snow was focused on Southern California. Not the whole year, but many times, okay? Now typically in a La Niña we don't see that focus. We see more of an erratic, split, variable jet stream or storm track. So it tends to meander around the Pacific. So we get a storm, but then we may not get a storm for 3 weeks. We get a glancing blow with a storm, then we get a direct hit of a storm. The bottom line is it's like a relief pitcher. La Niña is a little more wild. You don't know what you're going to get. Typically with an El Nino, the warm phase, you have not a guarantee, but you have more of a focus of energy or a focus of your jet stream and storm track into Southern California. What was odd is I just showed the past 2 years, and it didn't really matter if we were in La Niña or El Nino, we were wet. So the reason why we focus on El Nino or La Niña is it's in the tropics. And so the tropics have most of the energy for our storms, our moisture, our instability. The tropics are loaded. That's how come we can get hurricanes. That's how we tap into atmospheric rivers from the tropics. So we typically focus on the tropics, but we also see these red areas up here. What those can do, if you do get a storm, moving over those warmer waters, is that also can add energy to that storm. Not as much as what we see in the tropics. It's not quite the same relationship, but we do see enhancement in the storm if the storm does decide to track across all that warmer than usual water. In meteorology, it's simply put, you want warm below and cool above, and that maximizes your energy in storms. Typically, when you get into December, January, February, on any given year, you get a storm track that goes from Japan across the Central Pacific, below Alaska, and somewhere across the West Coast. So it is possible if we can get into that storm track, we can pick up some energy from that. The problem is that the tropics are not the normal condition of El Nino. They're the opposite, La Niña, and that tends to bring a wild, variable, inconsistent jet stream. So if your jet stream is going up here, if your jet stream is going down here, if it's missing these warm areas, they're not really a factor, right? And what we typically see in a La Niña is we get more of a cold path from Alaska, Western Canada, and then down. We call those inside sliders, we call those near misses, but we tend to get a little more of a drier Canadian flow, colder storms, less frequent, less of a direct hit in a La Niña year. You can still get really heavy rain like we saw 2 winters ago. It's one of our wettest winters Mammoth's biggest snowpack 2 winters ago occurred in a weakening La Nina. So this is the observation part. So real quick, we can see this is in time. So time increases left to right. The orange, the tall part here, that's last year's El Nino. That's a warm ocean. And as we went through the summer, it weakened, and now we're in the fall, and we see more blue, right? So it's the same information that the satellite shows us. It means we are going into a La Nina. Now, the question is, how much of a La Nina? And I think the one you're referring to is further down here.
There you go, that's it, exactly.
Probably that one. And so what that is a prediction of the ocean temperatures. And the question is, are we going to get a stronger La Nina? Like, is it going to get colder, or is it just going to stop and stay the same, or even get warmer? What this is telling us is, no, it's not going to stop. It's going to keep cooling along the equator. So La Nina is going to keep further developing as we go into the winter. This is about the winter here. So it's not expected to be a strong situation when we rate it like weak, moderate, strong. It's expected to be weak to moderate, which does add more uncertainty to forecasts sometimes, but at least it tells us we know that it's a La Nina and it's here to stay for a good part of the winter. The one thing with La Nina that differs from El Nino, the opposite, besides the fact that one's cold, La Nina, El Nino's warm, we have a lot more consistency in an El Nino. It doesn't mean we're always wet. It just means we get more normal to above normal precipitation. It's more of a sure thing with an El Nino. With a La Nina, for example, the past decade, we've seen our driest winters in La Nina and our wettest winters here in San Diego, Southern California, with La Nina. So La Nina brings such a wide range in variability, and the reason being is that it's a wild setup. You could end up getting storms going into the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, most of the winter, missing us. You can get storms going even above Seattle and further east of us. You can get storms going into the southern Pacific and curl up to Southern California like we did in 2022-23, 2 winters ago. They came directly into Southern California, one after one in January and February. That was our wet year. But the variability that's presented in a La Nina year is anything from your driest winter in the past decade to your wettest winter in your past decade. So there's just so much more uncertainty with a La Nina, and that's what we mean by a variable, erratic. If you are not in the storm track, no matter where you are on the West Coast, you're not going to get significant precipitation. And you need more than just a couple storms. In an average year, we get 6 to 10 storms, okay? If you end up only having 3 or 4, the chances of you getting anything close to normal is very difficult. And then the really wet years, like 2 years ago, we had 10 to 13 storms. And so your odds are that much higher. So I think the takeaway is La Nina's variability, yes, it has to do with the jet stream, the storm track, and no matter what La Nina you look at, we could experience the driest to the wettest. And that differs from El Nino because El Nino tends to be more consistently around the average or a little bit above the average rainfall. And again, our average rainfall is just under 10 inches in San Diego. Yeah, the El Nino is a more consistent, focused storm track. Not necessarily broader, because then that would be saying like an El Nino storm is bigger than a La Nina storm, and we're not saying that. Because no matter where you are in California, you can get tremendous amount of rain and snow from a La Nina storm. It's a matter of it hitting you. It's a matter of the trajectory. The trajectory, the path it's taking with La Nina storms is highly variable. Some are going north and south, some are going south to north. With an El Nino, it's more of a train, it's more of a focused, organized collection of storms. And that's unfortunately why, and it's probably frustrating when you hear, hey, we're expecting La Nina. Okay, what does that mean? How much snow and rain? Well, we don't really know. Highly variable, it sounds like a cop-out, but the past La Ninas, the actual amount of rain and snow has again been anywhere from our lowest totals ever recorded to some of our highest totals ever recorded here in Southern California. So it's a big range of possibility when you enter in that kind of a wild card year, when you enter in that La Nina year.